You're going to love today's conversation because I'll be speaking to you about single member LLC quarterly taxes. So this year, if you are going to think about single member LLC quarterly taxes, you definitely want to watch this show till the end. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. How are you today? I hope you are doing fantastic. I'm doing marvelous if you were to ask me. If you are doing as great as I am, go grab a cup of coffee or tea or vodka and let's roll. In today's conversation, we will be speaking about single member LLC quarterly taxes, okay? And let's first start with the overview. It's very important we have a clear understanding of the foundation of today's topic. So what is the overview? So paying single member LLC quarterly taxes to the federal government is required since you are paying self-employment tax on income received through your LLC. Self-employment tax is separate from taxes paid on gross income. This is a very important distinction to make. And a single member LLC is taxed like a sole proprietorship by the IRS for federal tax purposes. Only federal tax purposes, okay? A single member LLC does not report taxes to the IRS. And it also doesn't pay taxes to the IRS. Instead, the owner of the LLC reports and pays the taxes on his or her personal tax return. This is because a single member LLC is treated as a disregarded entity and has passed through taxation. So let's just, this sounds like a really funny word, disregarded. Let's just talk about that. Disregarded entity is a confusing term. We prefer to use the term ignore company, but the IRS actually uses the disregarded entity. What does that mean? It means that the IRS does not regard your entity as a separate entity, as an entity that is separate from your persona, from your individual financial matters, okay? Instead, the owner of the disregarded entity has to report the company's activities on his or her personal tax return. So what is pass-through taxation? So pass-through taxation means your single member LLC does not pay its own taxes. Okay, in order to explain pass-through taxation, it's easier to understand double taxation first. So double taxation exists for corporations, especially C corporations. So the corporation itself pays taxes on its income, and then the owners of the corporation each pay taxes again on their share of the profits. Okay, so on the other hand, LLCs have a pass-through taxation. This means the LLC does not pay its own taxes. Instead, the LLC owner pays the taxes for the LLC. Therefore, pass-through taxation avoid double taxation. This is very important to understand. Okay, so if your LLC is a sole proprietorship, are your personal assets still protected? Yes. So the thing here is that your LLC is not a sole proprietorship. It's just taxed like a sole proprietorship. But so it still retains the preservation of your legal liability or your personal liability. If something happens at the LLC level, your personal assets are still protected. But for business matters, for tax matters, the IRS wants you to treat your LLC, your single member LLC, as a sole proprietorship. Let's just clarify a few things so everybody is on the same page. So, does an LLC pay more taxes than a sole proprietorship? No. The answer is an equivocal no. An LLC, a single member LLC, does not pay more taxes than a sole proprietorship. In fact, having a single member LLC does not affect your taxes at all. It's no different than if you operated without an LLC. In other words, a sole proprietorship. You will simply pay your regular tax rate based on your individual tax brackets on the LLC's net income. It's very important to understand. Are we on the same page here? Okay. Do you have to pay more taxes with an LLC? No. Okay. You will not pay more taxes with an LLC than you would as a sole proprietor. Do you save money on taxes with an LLC? No. You don't save money on taxes with your LLC. Now, do you have to pay taxes for your LLC if it has no income? No. Again, if your single member LLC has no income, technically anything less than $400 in net income, so you don't have to report your LLC activities on your personal tax return. You don't have to pay any taxes for your LLC, and you don't need to pay quarterly estimated taxes for your LLC. Okay, so here are the steps. I just want to give you a few steps for you to file to file as a single member LLC, and this is very simple. Okay, number one, you want to use Schedule C to report business income and loss. So this form is then attached to Form 1040. So this is 1040 Schedule C. Number one. Number two, you need to pay the self-employment tax if the net gain from the company exceeded $400 or more in the tax year. So you have to complete Schedule SE and attach it to Form 1040. Schedule SE. You need to attach it to Form 1040. Then what you have to do is you have to report employment taxes if your LLC pays employees. Okay, so if you need to file Form 941 quarterly if the withholding is less than $1,000. Otherwise, you file Form 943 at the end of the year. Remember, if you are a single member LLC, you can still hire and fire people. So if you have multiple employees, you are the single boss, but you are hiring people. So you need to file Form 941 or 943, depending on the amount that you pay in payroll taxes. Okay, very important. So we are still talking today about single member LLC quarterly taxes. So let's talk about the due dates. Very important. When are your single member LLC taxes due? Remember, your LLC does not file or pay its own taxes. It is a disregarded entity. So you pay the LLC taxes on your personal tax return. Think about it this way. I want you to think about the whole thing this way. Let's say your LLC tax return and tax bill are due by April 15th every year, right? This is because all you need to do is include the LLC's information on your personal tax return. So the thing here is that if you are filing as a sole proprietorship, so your taxes are due on a certain date. You can see on the screen here, we have a very nice graphic by our very smart friends at The Balance. The Balance, thank you so much. Okay, so your first LLC taxes are due on April 15th of the year after you started doing business. So if you started doing business so you can, the thing here is that it depends, and it's really April 15th. That's the important date you need to remember. And so your LLC, your single member LLC, does not have to pay quarterly taxes, quarterly estimated taxes. No. LLC don't pay estimated taxes. Only individuals pay estimated taxes. Okay, so quarterly estimated taxes have nothing to do with whether or not you have a single member LLC, but rather it's all about how much money you make, including your income from the LLC. If you owe more than $1,000 in taxes, the IRS requires you to pay quarterly estimated taxes. Very important. So the quarterly estimated taxes are due 4 times a year: April 15th, June 15th, September 15th, and January 15th. Okay, very important to remember. So so once you are in the IRS system, estimated payment vouchers will be sent by the IRS at the end of the tax year. You are responsible for paying estimated taxes whether the IRS vouchers are sent or not. Okay, as a single member LLC, you will have to file Form 1040-ES. So the form is called 1040-ES. So the IRS recommends using Form 1040-ES to calculate estimated tax payments. We have covered this form on other shows, so if you are interested, please go to our video catalog and look for it. Okay, you can make payments using the quarterly vouchers, or you can use the electronic federal tax payment system, the EFTPS. Very important. One thing you need to understand is that you can pay all your quarterly taxes all at once by April 15th for the upcoming year, instead of paying 4 times a year. Yes, you can definitely do that. It's totally fine. Okay, and there are penalties for failure to pay quarterly estimated taxes. So if your payments are late or you don't pay enough, you may receive a penalty from the IRS, definitely. Okay, so let's talk about tax forms here. What tax forms do you file for a single member LLC? Typically, business income from a single member LLC is reported on a Schedule C. All right, so Schedule C is part of the owner's personal tax returns. Here we are speaking about Form 1040. The owner's return may also need to include the additional forms. And let me just walk you through those forms. So you have Schedule SE, so that's self-employment tax. You have Schedule E, that's real estate income. You have Schedule A, that's other business purpose deductions. You have Form 1099, this is miscellaneous income. You have Form 8829. So those are for expenses for business use of your home. So if you have a single member LLC and you operate from your home, from your garage, from your basement and whatnot, you definitely need to attach this form to your 1040. And you also have to think about Form 8995A, which is qualified business income deduction. So this is also important. So one thing I want to say here is that your tax return may require additional schedules and forms. It depends on what type of business you have and how you make money, right? So bottom line is always try to have an accountant. You want to have a CPA, an enrolled agent, or a tax attorney who is well versed in the tax matters for the single member LLC that you have in the industry you have it, right? It's always important to have someone who has a clear understanding of how things work in the industry. In other words, I mean, for example, if you have let's say you have a venture capital single member LLC versus a fishing or farming single member LLC, those are two different spheres of economic activity, right? So you really want to make sure you find an accountant, you find a CPA, you find an EA, an enrolled agent, or you find a tax attorney, a tax lawyer who clearly understand your business and your industry. Let's talk about tax write-offs, okay? So as a single member LLC, there are a lot of expenses you can deduct. And expenses that you can deduct for your single member LLC are now limited to home office expenses. Okay, so if you rent and work from home, you can deduct a portion of your rent. We talked about this before through the form of 8829. You can deduct your phone, your internet cost, so a portion of your internet bill. So it always has to be a portion of your cell phone bill if you actually work from home. Also, there are some LLC costs, so you can deduct the state LLC filing fees, LLC registered agent fees, and other LLC expenses. Travel, you can deduct expenses when traveling for business. You have professional fees, so you can deduct expenses for an accountant, attorney, or any other professional that your business hires. You can deduct cash for education and training, very important. So you can deduct the cost for any training related to your single member LLC, like seminars and online courses. You can definitely deduct contractors and employees. Remember, simply because you're a single member LLC, as I said before, you can hire people to work for you, but you just retain the ownership of the business, okay? So you can deduct fees paid to contractors and employees. You can deduct business insurance, okay? And you can deduct health insurance. So the health insurance premiums, unless you are eligible for health insurance from your spouse's employer. So the list I just gave you is not exhaustive. It does not include all applicable tax deductions. So it's important, again, to go back to what I said earlier, that you want to work with an accountant, you want to work with an EA, you want to work with a tax attorney who clearly understands, who clearly has a superb idea about what goes on in your industry. What are the tax write-offs that are available for industries your size? Companies your size, companies in your niche. Very important, okay? I mean, can you, and please make sure that you are very good in terms of paperwork keeping. You know, keeping your paperwork, making sure that you are always on top of your paperwork, so that when the IRS sees everything, if the IRS were to audit you one day, they will be very happy that you have kept all that documentation over the years. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of the Awesome Trader Kiwi Show. We are still having a conversation today about single member LLC quarterly taxes, and I want to give you a couple of relevant pieces of information. So what do you pay taxes on? So taxes are definitely paid on net income. So net income is the profit left over the expenses are paid, okay? And you have to pay taxes regardless of whether you leave the profit in the LLC bank account or distribute it to yourself. This is really important to understand. And so does a single member LLC need an EIN? We have covered this on other shows, but I want to quickly say here that your single member LLC should get an EIN, because there is a confusion in the LLC industry because the IRS says most single member LLCs do not need an EIN. So the IRS position is irrelevant, really, because you are going to need an EIN to open an LLC bank account. You also need an EIN if your LLC hires employees, and an EIN is free from the IRS and takes 5 minutes to get online. So we see no point in arguing whether or not single member LLC should get an EIN. You should, okay? And so one thing I want to say here is that make sure you form your LLC first before applying for an EIN for your LLC. Okay, and remember that single member LLCs can be taxed as a corporation. This is optional. So instead of being taxed in the default classification as a sole proprietorship, you have the option of having your LLC taxed as a corporation, S Corp, or C Corp. And so this can be done by making an election, quote unquote, election with the IRS. So this election asks the IRS to treat your single member LLC like one of the following for tax purposes. So LLC taxed as an S corporation, LLC taxed as a C corporation. So those are really, it depends on the kind of benefits you're looking for, okay? Most people, especially new business owners, keep their LLC taxed in its default classification. In other words, LLC taxed as sole proprietorship. But you can really do it, But now, while an LLC can be taxed as a C corporation, it's very uncommon. This typically only makes sense for larger employers who are looking to optimize taxes on the health insurance premiums for employees. Okay, and if your LLC pays taxes as an S corporation, this can save you money on self-employment taxes. So we only recommend this type of taxation if your LLC has at least $70,000 of net income. $70,000. Let's just quickly wrap things up today. Now, do not forget about, when we speak about single member LLC quarterly taxes, do not forget about state and local taxes. So keep in mind that most people with single member LLCs need to file state and local taxes like county or city taxes. This will depend on where you live and how your LLC makes money. Okay, don't let taxes actually stop you though. I mean, this can be a little complicated, but it's okay. We know that all this tax stuff can feel a little overwhelming. You don't have to figure out this by yourself, and you don't have to do things by yourself. You can hire an accountant to help. You can hire a CPA, I said this before, an EA or a tax attorney, and the thing is that if you are still worried about taxes, the simplest thing to do in our view is to leave 1/3 of your profit in your LLC bank account. Don't spend it and don't distribute it to yourself so you can use it to pay the tax bill. Okay, you can also contact the IRS directly if you want to have more questions. If you have more questions, they have a direct line. This is the 1-800-829-4933. That's for your single member LLC. So 800-829-4933. Very important numbers. And their hours of operations are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. Okay, and if you want to talk to someone, press option 1 again, and option 3 to speak to someone. Okay, and we actually recommend calling as early as possible for the shortest hold time. Very important. So bottom line here is what? Bottom line is that a single member LLC is taxed by default as a sole proprietorship. However, a single member LLC taxed as an S corporation or a C corporation must file its own tax return. We are speaking here about Form 1120S or 1120. Okay, in general. And it's important to also understand that the company itself does not pay taxes. That's why we are speaking about pass-through taxation. In other words, your single member LLC does not pay taxes, and so does your S corporation. Those are those are pass-through taxation. Only a C corporation is not a pass-through taxation. That's why people talk about double taxation in some cases. So it's very important to understand that distinction here, very clear. And one thing I want to say here is, which is better, LLC or sole proprietorship? We think that an LLC is better. This is because there are no disadvantages, there are no drawbacks to an LLC. However, there are drawbacks to a sole proprietorship. Most importantly, with a sole proprietorship, your personal assets are not protected if your business is sued. However, with an LLC, your personal assets are protected if your business is sued, okay? So really you have to think about that. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. In today's conversation, I was talking to you about single member LLC quarterly taxes. I give you an overview. We spoke about some clarifications, the due dates, the tax forms, the tax write-offs, the relevant info, and wrapping everything up. Fantastic. Thank you so much for following through, and God bless you. Before next time, please remain marvelous.